Righto, General Math students, in this video we're going to do an annuities in arrears question. So this question involves a housing loan. Annuities in arrears can also be used to solve trust funds questions, but this is a housing loan question. And just before we start, it does say here, use algebraic methods. Now, in this course you need to be prepared to use formulas, so use algebraic methods means using the formula. But the purpose of this video is to use the finance solver. So we're going to scrub that one for now, just for this video, and use the finance solver for this. Okay, so let's highlight the important information. We've got a loan of $300,000 at 9.5% with monthly payments over 25 years. And it's compounding monthly as well. Righto, so let's detail the inputs that we're going to use for this in the calculator solver, or the finance solver. So I'm going to write these down: NI, present value, payment, final value, PPY, and CPY. Now, we're asked to find the size of the monthly payment or monthly repayment. So that is this PMT here. I'll put a question mark there for that one. Okay, so the number of payments. So we're going monthly for 25 years. So 12 by 25 is 300 payments. The interest rate is 9.5%. Now the present value, that's how much is owed at the beginning of the loan. So in this case, 300,000. Now, that's a positive value because the money is coming out of the bank and being given to the people that are borrowing it. Now, at the end of this loan, the loan will be paid off, so it will be zero, therefore the final value is zero. Now, payments per year and compounds per year, it's monthly, so those are both 12. It's very important that we use or write the word AND down here and make sure that the drop-down menu at the bottom of the finance solver has AND selected, because the payments come at the end of each period in annuities in arrears. Okay, so let's get the calculator. And I'll go to menu and get the finance solver. Okay, so 12 by 25, and I'll tab that, and it works it out for me that that's 300, just in case you can't do those ones in your head. Okay, 9.5% here. Present value was 300,000. The payment, that is what we're trying to find, so I'll leave that blank. Present value 0. Okay, PPY 12. CPY is 12. It says AND in that menu at the bottom, so I can tab around to get to the payment and push enter, and there's our payment. Notice there's negative. That's because that payment is going back into the bank each month, therefore it's a negative value. 2621 and 9 cents when we round that off. So 262109 is the answer to that one. Okay, in part B, we're asked to find the amount owed after 5 years. Now, there's a couple of different ways to approach this on the calculator. I'm going to use the method that shows the amount of periods that have elapsed. So let's detail the inputs to start with before we worry about that. PPY and CPY. Alright, so number of periods, we've got 5 by 12. So if we put that one into the calculator, 5 by 12 and tab, that is 60 payments because we're 5 years into the loan, so 60 payments have occurred. So 60. We've still got the same interest rate. Now, the present value will remain the same under this method of calculating it, 300,000. And the payment we now know is 2621 and 9 cents. The final value is what we're going to calculate here. I'll put a red question mark to make it stand out. Okay, these are still 12, and we must write end at the bottom. Okay, so let's figure it out. Just going to tab down to the final value. So what do we owe after 60 payments? 281,193 and 25 cents. Now, if you did go and change, see, I haven't rounded off the payment here. If we round that off to 9 cents, that'll change that answer here a little bit, but that's okay. We're not too worried about that. So if you've got a slightly different answer because you put exactly, you rounded that off, but rather to 0.09, that doesn't matter. We're not worried. So it just, if I tab that, just comes out a little bit different. Not a big deal though. All right, still goes to the same number once you round it off. Get the same answer anyway. Makes a tiny difference. Okay, so 281,193 and 25 cents. So what was it? 25 cents. Righto. So that's how we use the finance solver for those ones. Now, we're asked a couple of questions that don't involve the, I beg your pardon, in part D we're asked a question that doesn't involve the solver, but in part C we still need the solver, sorry. So we're asked how much is owed at the halfway stage, righto. So let's detail the inputs. Now you've had a bit of experience here now. You've seen me have a couple of goes at this annuities, or using the finance solver for annuities and arrears. So maybe you feel confident enough to pause the video and write down your inputs and see what you get, and then start the video again and see if I do the same thing as you and see if we're both correct. So I'll give you an opportunity to pause the video now and do that. Right, I'm going to have a go at it. So the halfway stage, all right, there were 300 periods altogether, so halfway is 150. So we've still got 150 payments to go, or we could look at it that way, or we've got 150 payments that have elapsed. So if we look at it that 150 payments have elapsed halfway, then we're going to leave the present value as 300,000 and try and find the final value. What do we owe now? Payment is now still 2621. What was it? 909. Payments per year. These are still monthly. And it still says "and" down the bottom. Okay, so let's check how you went. If you did indeed pause the video. So we've got 150 up here. Tab it down, and we're expecting to get that number there. Now, if yours, once again, if you've left this not rounded off, you'll be a tiny bit different to that, but pretty much the same thing. So 281,134 and 20 cents for this one. 281,134. $0.20. That's how much is owed at halfway. So in part D, why after half the period, less than half the loan has been repaid? Oh gosh, this loan is worth $300,000, and at the halfway stage, we're not halfway into it yet. We're not down to $150,000. It feels like we've barely scratched the surface of this loan. We haven't even paid off $20,000 of the principal. Why is this? Well, I'll show you this graph here that shows the shape of an annuity in arrears over time, the way that the amount owing or the amount outstanding changes. So you can see that the amount outstanding, it reduces very slowly at first, and then as time goes on, it starts to reduce very quickly. So at the halfway point, which maybe is roughly here, we still owe almost most of what was originally borrowed. Now the reason for this is because at the start of the loan, early in the loan, the principal is still very large. And that's what is being used to calculate the amount of interest. And therefore the amount of interest is really large. Later on in the loan, near the end, the principal gets really small, so the amount of interest being accrued is really small. And that's the reason that we haven't paid off half of the loan halfway through the term of the loan. And I suppose you could think that at the start of the loan, every period they add some interest on, and you pay a bit off, and most of what you're paying off is just interest early on in the loan. When the principal's really large, you're hardly paying any of the principal off. It's mostly interest that you're paying. But late in the loan, there's very little interest. So when each time you pay off a lot of the principal. So we could try to formulate a sentence. There's lots of different ways you could write this and express it, and we would say you were correct. You might want to pause the video before I write something, and you can write a sentence or two explaining this and see how it reads after I have a go at it. So I'll let you pause the video if you like, then I'll write something. Okay, so I'm going to write this. Early in the loan, the principal is very large, so the amount of interest is large. Later in the loan, the principal is small, so the amount of interest is small. That'll do. Okay, so thanks for watching. Go ahead and check the questions for annuities and arrears, and try some annuities arrears questions on the solver.